Hey, hello, Keptn User Community. Hello, Jürgen.
Hi, Andy.
It's good
Hi,
that
everyone.
we're here, and we have some announcements, some really cool stuff to show. It's really hot off the press. Keptn 0.8, long awaited. And Jürgen and I decided to give you an overview of, we've been playing, both of us have been playing with Keptn 0.0 for the last couple of days, and it's really that new, and depending on when you watch the recording, it might already be out there for longer. But for us, it's pretty new. And we wanted to just show you what we've learned, and especially everybody that gets into Keptn 0.8, you need to understand a lot of the changes that happened. Really exciting changes, opening up a lot of opportunity. Jürgen, anything else to say from the links here, or shall we just keep going?
We can get started. I just want to announce, so this is Keptn is a CNCF project. It also means we are following the CNCF code of conduct here. So basically, please be nice to each other in the chat and also in the meeting document. If there are any questions, let us know. Please indicate also with your name that you are attending the Keptn User Group. And I'm really excited to see a lot of new cool features, also to show a little bit of new cool features. So let's get this started.
Yeah. All right, so some of you might be new to Keptn. That's why I have two slides that just highlight again what Keptn is. So for newbies, Keptn is something I think really amazing for whoever you are, whether you are in dev, ops, or SRE. Keptn really automates data-driven based decisions or data-driven based processes. So whoever you are, you can pick a use case that you want to automate, where maybe right now you're trying to use your existing automation scripts, you're trying to build custom integrations into your testing tools, into your monitoring tools, into your delivery tools. We basically have done the work for you. So with Keptn, you can pick a use case that you want to automate, whether this is evaluating of quality gates, delivery automation, SRE automation, that's performance test engineering, chaos engineering, which Jürgen is driving heavily, or also auto remediation workflows. Every use case in Keptn comes with some configuration because you need to tell Keptn what type of, let's say, SLI, service level indicators, and SLO, service level objectives, you want to use for your quality gates, what type of workload or chaos use cases you want to execute, what type of delivery you want to execute, and what type of runbooks you want to automate. So you bring your configuration. Best of all, you connect your tools, because everyone out there has their own different tools for the different environments. Keptn doesn't replace your testing tool, it orchestrates. Keptn doesn't replace your deployment tool, it orchestrates. Keptn doesn't do the monitoring for you, it reaches out to your monitoring tool. So it connects to your tools. And then the real magic is, instead of you having to build all of these workflows with custom coding and custom integrations into your pipelines, Keptn helps you with this. So Keptn automatically configures and connects the tools and then provides the picked use case as a self-service. And it does it through a declarative way. Everything is stored in Git. So that means every configuration is all version controlled. Everything when Keptn does something, it always double checks and validates against your service level objectives that you specified. So whether you're deploying something new, testing something new, executing auto remediation, Keptn always validates, did this action not break anything? And if so, it then takes a different course in the process. And everything is based on standards. So we are basing our communication to all of these different tools. We are basing it on cloud events, which is another CNCF project. So 3 examples of how Keptn already solves problems with some of our users. Sumit was on a webinar earlier. He talked about how they are using Keptn to automate quality gate evaluations integrated into Argo, Jenkins, and Gatling. So they're doing a massive amount of testing. Keptn helps them to analyze all the tests fully automatically. Roman, managing director at Triscon, they are scaling performance testing and resiliency testing at different organizations, especially in Central Europe, where with Keptn, they were able to 15-fold increase the number of performance tests that they now run, and 10-fold the number of apps that they are testing, because Keptn is now automating the test execution and the test analysis. And Christian, he was also already talking here. They have moved over from traditionally Jenkins to GitLab, which is great, but now they have like 1,000 different GitLab pipelines, and they keep growing, especially as they're now moving to Kubernetes. So instead of building a lot of custom code into the GitLab pipelines, like for test execution, for deployment automation, for validation, they're using Keptn. And they have already onboarded their latest services on Kubernetes with Keptn, and especially where Keptn helps them is they have 14 different stages. They are a clinical trial company, very complex approval processes. And instead of building all this complexity, these checks into their existing pipelines, they use Keptn to orchestrate all of this. All right. Now, this is just a recap on what Keptn is in case you're new to Keptn. Now, let me get you to some news on what's new in Keptn 0.8. So first of all, Shipyard 0.2. I really recommend, I hope I picked the right link. I see Johannes is also on the call. He was one of the masterminds behind the thing. Read up on the declaration of Shipyard. There's a lot of information in there. Shipyard is the way in Keptn where you specify what do you actually want Keptn to do. And I want to give you a quick overview of how Shipyard used to look like and how it's looking like now. So this is an example of Shipyard 0.1.x with a classical 3-stage delivery pipeline. We had a very opinionated approach, which means you specify dev, staging, and prod, and you gave some additional hints to Keptn what should happen in each stage. We got a lot of feedback that while this is great to be so opinionated, people needed more flexibility. This is why now with Shipyard 0.2, you still specify your stages, dev, staging, and production, but then within a stage, you have much more flexibility. You can define so-called sequences. Sequences can contain one or more tasks. Sequences can depend on each other or can be triggered by each other. So one sequence can be triggered by another. Gives you a lot of flexibility. The tasks, there's a set of, let's say, well-defined tasks like deployment, test, evaluation, release, rollback, but then you can also define your own tasks and include new capabilities that might not yet be, that we have not thought yet about, right? So really the important thing is we used to have a very opinionated approach. We still have some opinions, obviously, about the stuff that we want you to do, but we now give you much more flexibility with Shipyard 0.2. Good. Now, very important, and this is one of the examples I want to show you, is that you understand that in Shipyard now we have the concept, obviously still of stages, we had this before, but now we introduced so-called sequences, tasks, and triggers. And I want to show you the pipeline the demo that I'm showing you in a second. So I have a 3-stage pipeline, and you see on the left here, my dev stage has a delivery sequence where I say, when I kick off dev delivery, I want deployment to happen with a direct deployment, so whichever tool I have. Then I want tests to happen to do some functional tests. Then I want evaluation to happen. If the evaluations go well, then I want to officially release that particular artifact. And then I want to have an approval stage to say, is this good to go into the next stage? So in order to kick this off, and this is also slightly different because we now, instead of just sending an arbitrary event, like a new artifact event, we are now sending a so-called Keptn sh.stage.sequence.triggered. So you're always triggering a certain sequence in a certain stage. Now, for some of the use cases, the Keptn CLI provides a very nice shortcut. You can, for instance, say Keptn trigger delivery, and then the CLI will exactly create the right event for you. But in my case, what happens with the Shipyard on the left, Keptn will go off and, well, it will internally know it needs to trigger the sequence delivery in the dev stage. So we have the Shipyard controller that is looking at your Shipyard file and is then saying, hey, the first thing I need to do, I need to send a deployment event. So it basically sends a deployment start event, a deployment triggered event with the additional properties I've specified in my Shipyard. Then my deployment tools, whatever this is, maybe the built-in Helm service, maybe you're calling Argo, maybe you're calling Jenkins, maybe you're calling GitLab, maybe you're calling Spinnaker, whatever you have, will then react to it and then send back the status. Once this is done, the next thing happens. Keptn will send a test triggered event. After that, an evaluation event. After that, as part of the evaluation, we also see a get SLI event, which happens even though it's not in the Shipyard itself. This happens implicitly because Keptn's Lighthouse service, which is evaluating your SLIs and SLOs, is reaching out to your monitoring tools. And then once everything is good, you have, in my case, I have the release event. and then followed by that an approval where I can either automatically approve it into the next stage, or I can ask a human if I do manual approval. So hopefully this all makes sense. Jürgen, so far from your side, is my pace good? Is what I'm saying? Does it make sense?
Yes, you're rushing us through this, but I think we already see a little bit of the new UI here of Keptn.8, and it makes a lot of sense to explain how the events are actually triggered and on the sequence of the events. Thanks for this deep dive.
Yeah. Next thing, in my case, right, when my def is done, Keptn is basically finishing the def stage at the end, or the def sequence in this case, with Keptn sh def delivery finish, because that sequence is finished. Once all the tasks are executed, it will send a finished event, and also includes the status, passed or failed, depending on the latest result of all the tasks. Now, in my case now, if you look on the left side, and maybe I want to quickly highlight and annotate this because this is really important. This is all new, and I wasn't aware of this, right? So I have my staging and my delivery sequence. So within my staging stage, I have a delivery sequence, and I say, please trigger this delivery sequence. So I know I just over kind of painted it, but triggered on def delivery finished. So if def delivery finished, then I want to continue with this particular sequence. And as you can see here, in my case, I then execute a couple of tasks. And this is exactly what Keptn then will do here for me. So let's go on. Where is my, I need to clear my drawings because they're really not that beautiful. But as you can see here, Keptn, just as before, it is sending all these events based on my specification. It is sending events with this, triggering the right tools. The tools, every time an event is sent, will then respond back, and I will cover a little bit more of this later. The status, when they started, when they stopped, and what the status is. And also what's very important, and this might be again worth another drawing attempt from me, but I use a smaller size of the of my paintbrush. I have, as you can see here, a sequence delivery, right? That's the one that I triggered earlier, and it's triggered when the def stage is finished. What I've also have here is a rollback component. So I can basically say, hey, within the same staging, I have one sequence that is responsible for delivery, which makes sense, right? The best case scenario, deploy, test, evaluate. But then I also have a sequence that I call rollback that will be triggered in case my staging delivery finished. So basically this here, in case this one fails, I may want to execute some tasks. I may want to notify people, or I want to trigger a rollback event or send a rollback event. And depending on your delivery tool, maybe this triggers a special Jenkins pipeline that does a rollback, or it triggers whatever else you use. But this is a nice way to model and connect your individual sequences through eventing. And the nice thing is you can also, the triggered on, this is really beautiful because you can say trigger on an event, but you can also use the selector to match certain criteria. I think this is pretty powerful. All right, so before I go into the first demo, how can I actually trigger all of this? You can trigger it always through the API, but a very convenient way that a lot of people do when they start with Keptn is using the Keptn CLI. So the Keptn CLI gives us very easy triggers. We can trigger a delivery and a quality gate use case through the CLI because it has built-in Keptn trigger delivery and Keptn trigger evaluation endpoints now. I want to focus on the delivery aspect now. So here is a Keptn trigger delivery, and what this takes is a project, a stage, and a service, because Keptn still uses the same configuration construct. And then because it's a trigger delivery, I can add additional delivery parameters like image, tag. So this is stuff that is then, this is data that will then be needed by any of the tools that will participate in that sequence I'm triggering. So what does this actually do, right? So I have trigger, delivery, def, and additional metadata. This is taken by the CLI. And I like this because now I can also show you how you could trigger do the same thing with the API. It basically sends a Keptn event def delivery triggered event. right? We're triggering that sequence, and it is adding this particular image and tag as data construct in the configuration change block. This is something that we have specified. If you read up on the spec, this is for the delivery use case. Which means, right, really what it does, it is then triggering the dev, in the dev stage, the delivery sequence. And then all the tools, all the events that will be sent in, they will be able to access this configuration data. They can add more data. They may also need additional data. And this is also then additional data that comes in through the properties. All right, so now let's go to the first demo. So what I have prepared, I have for Keptn 07, Jürgen, I've created my Keptn on K3S with some examples especially for Dynatrace use cases. So I want to show this now as well. I have, I'm going to deliver a new version of my service. And one thing that I also highlight here, these are the screenshots, because there's a new view that I want to introduce you to. So let's go over. Let me show you first. I have my demo delivery project, and hopefully this is big enough. This is my environment screen, the one that you have always seen, right? Or the one that we are familiar with. Now under services, this is stuff where I've triggered it earlier. Now it's working. It's beautiful. This is the stuff that I fixed earlier because I completely broke all of my whole environment. This is what you've seen, what you are already used to in Keptn 07, but now the service view is really focusing on a little, let's say, optimized view. So on the top, I can see the dev and the staging use case. So dev is already finished. And if I click on it, we are showing you the most important thing, which is the quality gate result in dev. We don't show you all the other details because maybe you're not even needed. Staging currently says question mark, because staging, yes, we already have an evaluation result. Everything is green, but I've specified that between staging and production, I want to have an approval stage into production. And this is also something, maybe this is also by Johannes, I know he's on, and we had a discussion earlier. Do we want to have the approval on the production side to let something in from staging into prod? In my case, I'm just doing it from staging, and I say, shall it go on, yes or no? And I let it go, and that's it. Now you can see, now I see the third stage, dev, staging, and prod is currently happening. There's nothing, let's say, exciting yet from a high level perspective, but I can always go to few sequences. And few sequences now brings me to the new sequence screen, which shows me in dev, if I go back, everything that happened in dev. The deployment, the test, the evaluation, the get SLI, which is part of the evaluation, the release, and then the approval between dev and staging. Here I had automated approval turned on. Then in staging, I had my Monaco service for automatically configuring my Dynatrace environment, doing the deployment, running some tests, evaluation, and so on. So this is also a nice way to see my individual sequences that I have specified, or my individual task within a sequence. So remember, I am currently looking at the demo delivery. I have dev, staging, and production as my 3 stages, but within a stage, I always execute a sequence, and a sequence is a set of tasks. Okay, hopefully this makes sense. Now I want to kick off the next build. This is build number 1 of.
Andy, may I just interrupt you, because can you click again on staging or dev? I just want, here, that's perfect. Maybe just one word on this Monaco point, because we have not seen this in the Shipyard. So maybe just, if you can just spare one word on why we can see it here and how you integrate it.
Yeah, so actually good point. Now you should have seen it in the Shipyard file if you looked closely, but
okay.
I will give you a quick overview. So here's my project, my demo delivery. I have Gitea, or Giti, I think that's how it's called. And if I look at my Shipyard file, then in dev, I only have the deployment test, but in staging, I also added the Monaco task. So Monaco is monitoring as code. Now, I could have decided to trigger Monaco from any type of event, because what Monaco does, it reaches out to my Dynatrace environment and makes sure everything is correctly configured based on config data I have in my config repo from Keptn. But I decided to add an additional task here that is called monitoring as code, hoping also that other monitoring vendors in the future that have some automated way to configure their monitoring environments may also create a Keptn service, for instance, automatically configuring Datadog, automatically configuring Prometheus or New Relic. That would be great. So I'm trying to establish a new task here for particularly monitoring configuration. Right? And in my case, Jürgen, if I go back in my staging environment, under simple node, under Dynatrace, I have here dashboards and management zones that I've specified, and they will automatically be rolled out to Dynatrace for me. But the nice thing is I have the source of truth is in Keptn here.
Perfect. Thank you.
Good. I wanted to kick off another build. Where's my environment? So here's my, let me just do this. So in order to trigger a new sequence, especially a delivery sequence, right? I can now do Keptn trigger delivery for the project for my stage. I start in dev and then simple node, and then I give it the data. So what this will now do, as I mentioned earlier in the slides, it will craft an event that basically tells Keptn, hey, somebody wants to trigger the delivery sequence for the dev stage in this project for this service. And here is some additional information that is needed for delivery. So because you say Keptn trigger delivery, it takes the image and the tag parameter and packages it in that particular data block for let's say for your deployment tool, so that they know what they should deploy. So if I go back in here and if I go to my simple node, now build number 2 has started, right? Again, this is the view where only we'll see things like approval or quality gate results, the things that are important for you. But if I click here, I see that deployment has already kicked off. So the first thing, right, this was what I actually sent, SH Keptn event deployment triggered. So it triggered the deployment task. And you can see in here under the configuration change, this is what the CLI made sure that it put it into the right data block, right? Because depending on kind of the task for testing and for notifications and for anything else, you have different data blocks, and everybody adds the data to the right data block. Cool. And now, right, you can see your deployment, Helm service has started, Helm service finished. This is also new. We have start and finished events. Really cool. More on that later. But now, hopefully my deployment is running. We also have some new visualizations here. It makes life so much easier. Good. Right, then let me go quickly back. I have one thing, and I've, as some of you may know, I love performance engineering, and I've been doing this for a while. So I thought, how can I use Keptn for making my performance as a self-service use case even better than before? Because my use case was always Keptn, I tell you URL and you run a test, and at the end you're done. But now I said, with the capability that I have to specify sequences, and I can define a sequence being triggered by another sequence, I can do some really cool things. So here's what I've done. I have said, if I want to performance test a new service, I first, and maybe I need my magic wand again. Where is it? Here we go. I basically specified, I have a testing sequence first that has a functional test. So first, when I kick off testing, I want to run a quick functional test, just validating, is my service even up and running? Could be a Selenium test, could be just an API test. Once this is done, I want to run the sequence performance light. So performance light, damn, I'm really so bad in drawing, but performance light is triggered if the functional tests are passed. And so what is performance light? Performance light runs the tests with a very light workload. Now, why am I doing this? Because in performance engineering, I've learned that a lot of problems can be identified, let's say, with just 2 virtual users. And it doesn't make sense to run a 10-minute load test with 100 users if I can already have a quick, does it even scale to 2 users? So that's why I say, start with functional. If that's okay, do a light performance test. And if that is okay, then I really go into the performance stage. And here, right, performance stage, it is triggered if the functional performance light is finished with pass. Then I run a true performance test where I have maybe more workload. Right? And this is exactly what I'm doing here. And this is really cool because I can now mimic this and design this with a Keptn Shipyard 2.0. So to walk through this in my Shipyard, when I say, please run this, I'll trigger the sequence. Keptn will send the first strategy, the first test event with functional tests. If the functional tests pass, it will then, as I just said, run the performance light tests. It will do the evaluation. And if that's good, then it will trigger kind of the real performance tests. Right? Cool. And so in this case, how can I do this? The way I do this, the way I can trigger such a sequence is I can do it through the Keptn CLI by doing Keptn send event, but I have to craft my own event. And for this, in my sample, I just wrote a little shell script that is exactly creating this particular JSON file here, right? It's basically sh Keptn. I start in the functional testing phase, so I trigger the functional testing phase, and I am passing in a URL. That's all I do, and then Keptn will exactly execute the stuff that I wanted to execute. So I just show you the result instead of going through the demo because I know we're already 20 minutes in, and I guess I need to clear my drawings. So I have my demo advanced performance. I have functional and performance stage. I have my app under test. And here earlier, I sent exactly an event in that was first executing some functional test. Here, I didn't have specified any SLOs. I just wanted to make sure if I click on view sequence, is my initial test good, then I'm running performance light tests. And if that is good, then great. And then we go over to my real performance tests. And if I look at my heat map, then this looks like everything is good. But this is a great way to show how you can chain individual sequences, a very cool key concept. All right. Does it still make sense, Jürgen?
Yes, I think it's a great way actually to not waste any resources, because if you can first check if the environment, if everything is ready for testing, and then you can basically hit it with a lot of load. But I love the concept of this performance light, that you basically evaluate if everything's ready, and if you can have early feedback, and you don't have to wait for 1 hour to get the results of the performance test when you know they will be failing anyway because of some dependency that's not ready.
Exactly. And the cool thing is I hear so many folks that say, hey, you know, and we normally we have functional tests, and we have API tests, then we have the performance small workload, then more workload, and huge workload. How can I model this with Keptn? Well, now you can. That's it. It's that easy. It's really cool. And then you can easily click here, functional performance, and now I also like this, you always just get automatically directed to the heat map, which is also really cool. And by the way, the heat map or the evaluation result, we now also have a direct link to it. So you have a deep link where you can say Keptn bridge evaluation. And then if you have the Keptn context, you automatically get the full screen. This is great if you want to integrate this with your CI/CD tools. Let's say with your Jenkins or something, you can directly link to this. You know. All right. Good. Another thing, this is where I told you in the beginning, we kind of moved away a little bit from being very opinionated to give you more freedom. However, we know that we want to show you that we have an opinion, and hopefully a good opinion on certain things. So if you want to create this, I would say the #1 use case right now that we have with Keptn, that we see that our users are using, which is quality gates. You don't need to craft a complex Shipyard file. So I have 3 versions here. And the first 2 are actually doing the same thing. You can see on the left side, if you create a Shipyard file and you just specify the stage name, then you can use Keptn and say Keptn trigger evaluation, project, service, stage, time frame, labels, whatever. It will automatically take the Shipyard and implicitly create an evaluation sequence with an evaluation task. So basically, if you use this, it's the same as the one in the middle. You can also create it, of course, the same way, but we kind of have a certain opinion on that, and you can just create a very simple Shipyard file. Now, what I've done in some of my demos, I'm extending that simple version. And before I run a quality gate evaluation, especially with Dynatrace, I always run Monaco, because Monaco is first making sure that Dynatrace, so my monitoring tool, is properly configured. So let me show you this quickly as well. I have my Dynatrace project here, my quality gate sequence and demo. And what I can do, if I go to my CLI, I can say here Keptn trigger. And if you don't know it by heart, you can do something like this: trigger evaluation. And then if you do help, this is really helpful. That's why they call it help, I guess. Keptn trigger evaluation. And I can say project in my case is Dynatrace, service is demo, stage is quality gate. I think that's how I called it. And now I can say time frame equals, let's say 30 minutes. And what I also really love is that I can do labels. And I can say, you may know that we have one special label, build ID. So I can pass in the build ID if I have something run by Andi, watched by Jürgen. Right? I can add labels. And now stage is not, oh yeah, I need to push stage. Here we go. And it is sending that event in. And now hopefully, if everything works as expected, what Keptn CLI will do, it will send an event to my Dynatrace project, to my, did I spell it correctly? Quality gate. Yeah, exactly. And then here we go. It actually failed. But I see that it was executed. It was watched by Jürgen, it was run by Andi. And what's also nice is, in my case, I actually have a dashboard behind the scenes. And it's this dashboard here. And this was also created before the quality gate was executed by Monaco. And this dashboard is something I have in my config repo. It will automatically be created. Every time I run it, will make sure that it's there. So really sweet.
That's really cool. Making sure that you always have the same configuration actually applied. In this case, it's Dynatrace, but if anyone messes up your dashboard, whenever you run a quality gate evaluation, you know the dashboard will be again ready for you. That's really cool.
Exactly. So here's just my Dynatrace dashboard, right? And this will just always be applied using our Monaco service. So very powerful. Exactly. So then I think I've shown you this. I ran all of this. That's good. So here's some good to knows. And this is also where, thanks to Johannes, who gave us some insights this morning, and I'm sure there's more coming. You can add and remove sequences and tasks. So that means if you decide that you want to add a new sequence in a certain stage, you want to add or remove tasks, you can do it now. The only thing that is not possible right now is you cannot add or remove stages, but this is also planned. I told you the opinionated versus non-opinionated. So we give you more freedom. I'm pretty sure we want to in the end also give you more opinion. And again, if you're starting with a multi-stage delivery, you may not want to craft a full like pipeline that I had or Shipyard file. So I'm sure we will do this. But I think this is we're in a very good state right now, where we give you the freedom, but we also have, especially for the quality gates, a good default. The approval, this is something that I learned right now only makes sense after an evaluation. So it's right now in Keptn 07, we always had the approval in the target stage. Let's say in production, you were asked, do you want to let something in from staging? This is possible, but right now the approval, and this is something, Johannes, we need to talk about, that I learned today with Florian. If you do the approval in the beginning of a stage, it doesn't have access to the previous results. So this is why the best practice, and I think also based on the tutorials that we have out there right now, we have the approval always at the end of a stage. And then we say, is it good to go into the next? This is something that I've learned. Very quickly, because this is also new for me and was new for me, we have no longer just a deployment strategy, but now we have a couple of new tasks. We have a deployment task, a release task, and a rollback task. So these are well-defined tasks. And so the idea is, with deployment, your deployment tool should, let's say, deploy a canary and then turn on and manage that canary deployment, or blue-green, and maybe switch the traffic. Releasing means, after you've done the deployment and the testing, release means we've proven, Keptn has validated that this is really good. So now you can promote the canary or the blue-green to be primary. And rollback is an action or a task that should be called and kind of be able to roll back. So there's, I'm sure, different ways how you can integrate this. Now I tried to highlight how this works with Keptn's Helm service, because Keptn comes with an out-of-the-box Helm service that you can use, and it uses the thing it can do with Istio. It can do blue-green deployments, but it also allows you to do direct deployments. And I tried to visualize what happens right now if you do a direct deployment with Keptn out-of-the-box capability. And let's say you have version 1 right now deployed in a stage, and you deploy version 2, that's a direct deployment, and that's it. If the deployment is then tested and validated, and you have a release tasks in your pipeline like I had, actually nothing happens. It just stays there. If you do a rollback, nothing happens. It's a direct deployment, nothing happens. Okay, this is why you specify direct deployment. You just override the old one. Now with blue-green, it's a little different. With blue-green, if you're having Istio as a load balancer, and if you have version 1 as the primary out there right now, and then you say, hey, Keptn, I have version number 2, it will deploy version number 2 as a canary and also redirect the traffic. Then you can do all your testing, for instance, and if then Keptn says, good, and it calls the release task, then what it does, it will promote version 2 to the primary and will also redirect the traffic again to the primary. Now, if it's a rollback, then it will basically switch back. That's kind of the idea. It will go back to the initial state. This is how Keptn's Helm service work. I know we have a lot of folks that are asking for Argo rollout support right now and for other things. I'm sure we'll figure out the best way how to integrate these tools using these 3 tasks. Good. Quick on eventing and tool integration, because I know, Jürgen, you have done already a lot of tool integrations with 08, especially uplifting. I think Litmus, even though I think Christian also worked on Litmus, but you do the Locust and Litmus, yeah, and some other tools.
Exactly.
I can really recommend you to watch Christian's YouTube video that he published actually end of January. It might no longer be completely up to date because this was the alpha version of Keptn 08, but he did a great job in explaining the new eventing and how all this works with triggered, with started, with finished events. Really cool. Just to give an example of, for instance, how the JMeter service works. So if Keptn is executing my test task within, let's say, my functional stage within a certain sequence, the first thing Keptn does, it sends an SH Keptn event test triggered event with additional data like test strategy functional and deployment URL, your URL. This can then be consumed, for instance, by your test service, could be the JMeter service. If the test service says, yes, I can do this task, I can run a test, then it needs to send an Keptn event test started. So sh Keptn.event dot task name, in this case test, and then started. You can also say already a status if the starting succeeded or not, because maybe you were not able to reach out to your testing infrastructure or something like this. This could also happen, but you sent this in. Then your tool would run the test or do whatever it does. And once that is done, it sends a finished. And all of this is also shown in the Keptn's bridge. So, but it's always a triggered and then a start and a finished. And based on that, the Shipyard controller and Keptn makes the decision, do we continue with that sequence with the next task? Is the sequence finished, yes or no? And what happens next? Good. You can build your own then existing services. Keptn Service Template Go has been updated already. I think it was Christian again who did a great job here. There's already some other services like Litmus and Locust and the Monarch. Last section, which is very exciting, multi-cluster support. This was a big ask for many of you. What you can do now, and there is more details you can find in the Keptn 08 docs for multi-cluster installation. So what you can do is you can install just the Keptn control plane on any Kubernetes cluster, like I have it on K3S. Control plane means you get the core components, the shipyard controller, the lighthouse, the configuration service, and maybe you add some additional services, whatever you think should be part of the control plane. And then you can install those services that need to do a job and need to execute a task on a target environment. Let's say you're running your pre-prod environment on some EKS cluster somewhere. So you can install the execution plane there, and then you can install, for instance, the G-meter service, the Helm service, whatever other service. Maybe we'll have a Spinnaker service in the future or an Argo service on that cluster. And important here, when you configure that service, remember every Keptn service has the service itself, and in that same deployment, you have the service pod or the service container and the so-called distributor container. The distributor is the one that is listening for events from Keptn. And you can now configure that distributor to not only listen for events within that same cluster, but you can say, please reach out to that Keptn API over there, and you need to specify API endpoint and token. So this is the way it works. And then you can say, hey, I have my pre-prod here, and in this case, I say my G-meter and my Helm service will poll for events from all the projects, all the services, but only where the stage is, for instance, staging. Then you may have a prod cluster on GKE, and here you would say, for all the projects, for all the services, but only where the stage is production GKE. And then you may have another on-premise Kubernetes cluster. And then you do the same thing here. So the idea is really then these are constantly polling for events. And for you, in the end, it's completely transparent. And what's also nice, and this is kind of my last thing that I want, and then Jürgen, also, if you want to demo something, because I realize I've just talked 45 minutes, but the way, what this enables you to do, and this is something that I remember that the folks from Avodac have asked for it, and also Christian Heckelmann. If you have a pipeline or a delivery where you have, let's say, dev and staging, and then once staging is done, you want to then give it into multiple production clusters. You can now do this. You can do this exactly as I showed you here. I can, in my Shipyard file, have 3 stages: production GKE, production EKS, production AKS. And in every stage, I have a delivery sequence that is triggered if staging delivery is finished. And then based on the filters, I can make sure that as Keptn is triggering the right events, they will be handled exactly by that target system. And this is truly, I think, now a game changer for us. Exactly. So, Jürgen, I didn't have a remote because I completely messed up my environment about 2 hours ago. I know you have a remote system. In the end, it's very transparent to the end user, because it's just you don't really see anything different in the bridge, because it just happens magically. But yeah, if you want to show your environment, or if any other questions are coming in, let us know.
Sure. So I can quickly show my environment, although what you already said is it's basically, I'm not sure if I'm already, yeah, I think I'm sharing. So it's basically very transparent. So we won't see the multi-cluster in the bridge. But what I just want to highlight is that it's really easy to get started with this multi-cluster support. And in my use case, I'm not using multi-cluster for deploying on different clusters. So I think it's a great idea to have a production cluster, a pre-production cluster, maybe even a dev cluster. In my case, I thought I want to run my performance tests on a specific cluster. I don't want to mess performance tests with performance tests from my production cluster. I want to run the performance testing infrastructure instance on a dedicated cluster. So what I've done is I spun up a very small cluster, Kubernetes cluster, and I installed only one service. So there is no need for the Keptn control plane running on it. There is no need for any other Keptn dependency running on it. You basically have one service running. In my case, it's the Locust service. So this is how I installed it. I installed it with Helm installed with the Locust service. There will be the Helm template, the Helm chart will be provided also as part of the Keptn service template that we right now already provide for Go. And this part, to also make it available already for multi-cluster support, it's right now not there. We will add it. And it's basically a Helm chart behind the scenes with a values file that you just have to adopt, which is only a couple of lines. And also this file here, or that's basically this file, the values file that you will adopt, and I've just added basically my host name where my Keptn control plane lives, a token. I've removed the token just before this presentation, but just be reminded there is a token. And one very important part is here that the control plane is on a remote cluster. It's not on the same cluster, so you have to set this to true. It's a remote control plane. And then basically, yeah, things that should not surprise you, like which image you want to run, the image policy. Right here is just a little bit of a def setting, let's say. So I've applied this, I've installed this. What do I get? I get a locust service running. It's the only pod that I've running on this cluster, basically, besides from the Kubernetes ones, but there is no other Keptn instance or anything running. So I have one service running here, and it's my locust service. I just keep this for a second, because what we now want to do is just trigger this integration, and I do this with a deployment event. So we can do it in the same way as you might already have done this earlier with the Keptn send event. And I'm just sending a deployment event to this. We can also take a look really quick on this deployment event. It's just pushing or just basically sending to Keptn the image, the replica count, and yeah, basically where it's coming from. So nothing very special. And let's just send this Keptn send event. And I'm sending this to the Keptn control plane. So not to the cluster that I just showed you, but this is going to the Keptn control plane. We can take a look in the Keptn's bridge. I just started this a second ago. Deployment is already finished. It was very fast because I already did the deployment earlier. So it was basically just checking if it's still the same version. So deployment is finished, all good. Tests. So actually right now I start two tests. One is a Litmus chaos test, and the other one is locust. So Litmus was actually started on the same cluster. It's this cluster where I do have the deployment. So I'm kind of messing with my deployment on this cluster, but the traffic is coming from outside, from the locust service. And right now I'm just waiting for both services to be finished. That's also a cool part of Keptn 0.8. The Shipyard controller makes sure that it waits for all the events to come in before proceeding to the next stage. So the Litmus service does not know that there's a locust service running. It does not even have to know that there's a locust service running, and the other way around. So each service can act autonomously, let's say, and they will just announce whenever they're finished. So they indicated already that they have started both services, and they will also indicate when they're finished. My load tests here, again, coming from outside of the cluster. Maybe we can see this. Yeah, we can see it's initialized. It got the event. It's already starting. It's sending the traffic from outside, and it's sending this to this instance. So my Hello service is running on this cluster. Locust is right now executing these tests, and they will take 2 minutes to be finished. So after 2 minutes, I will see the result, and the result will be sent to Keptn, and I can also see it in the bridge. The locust integration the Litmus integration is usually a little bit faster. So in this case, it actually was a little bit faster. Litmus already finished. Keptn does not move on to the next stage yet, or to the next task, because it's still waiting for the other started test to be finished. So whenever the locust is finished, it will send back to Keptn, will send back the result. So we can see a little bit of a messy output here. This is just because I'm still kind of developing this integration. But what we can also see, it's working, and one part was executed on the same cluster where Keptn was installed. The other part was executed on a completely different cluster, sending all the traffic to the Keptn installation, or actually to my Hello server application. And whenever both are finished, Keptn moves on with the evaluation. And I can see evaluation in this case. Let's take a look. But we saw it was green, and evaluation all good here. With although I had some chaos running on this, and yeah, that's basically it. So as said, we cannot see really all the magic going on behind it, but the installation procedure of remote services is really easy, and yeah, we know that this feature was asked for a lot of times, and I'm really happy that it's here, and it's really great to use. So please give it a try.
Hey, I got a question. I know that Johannes is on the line. Maybe we can promote him.
Sure.
To panelists. Hopefully he's still there. Because if I understand this correctly, the only thing you install on the execution plane is really just some service that is listening on an API. It's polling the Keptn API. So that means we have no dependency at all anymore to Kubernetes.
That's correct, yeah.
That's really cool.
Technically, you can run the distributor just as a container, because it just pulls on the API, and that is what it does.
Yeah, so that means we can run this anywhere, and this is phenomenal. I mean, the control plane, yes, it makes sense that we run it. Obviously, that we have the dependency and it's architected for Kubernetes, but the execution plane can run anywhere. This is really cool.
Yeah, in this case, it's a pod with 2 containers in it, so we're still using the concept of Kubernetes pods. Basically, you can mimic the same with other concepts.
Yeah, you can do a Docker compose, and that's it, right? Just launch 2 pods. One is listening and then forwarding the event to the other one. I mean, it's
absolutely.
And the cool thing is that the distributor, which is the small little guy that does the communication with the control plane, that also works as a proxy, meaning that API calls that you would send from your service to the Keptn API, for example, to fetch config files. To fetch config files. This is now proxied through the distributor, so that you don't have to touch your code. Your code stays as it is, and the distributor is abstracting away the details of the communication.
Cool. And in theory, if somebody doesn't want to have 2 containers, you could even probably build a Keptn service that includes the logic of the distributor.
Right.
I mean, that is really phenomenal. Thanks, Johannes.
You're welcome
for that clarification. Good. Are there any other questions from anyone in the audience? If you have a question, we can either promote you to a panelist, I guess, or just start with Q&A, the Q&A window. That's always the easiest. I know it's late for many of us, based considering or judging by the names. I think a lot of people are from Europe or even further east, so it's late. Some are in the US. I see Jeff there. He should still be getting ready for his day. Johannes, as I have you on the line and as we're waiting for question, the thing that I mentioned with the approval, this is really, I think, something we should probably look into as a, like, what do we really expect and what is the best practice? The approval at the end of one stage or the approval at the beginning? And if it's at the beginning, how do we get that result over? Because right now, if it's in the beginning of the stage, it seems it doesn't have the result from the previous stage.
The previous one. Yeah. I think I had a look at an old version of Keptn, maybe I think it was alpha, where we had the payload from the previous stage in the next one, in the new one. And this has changed, but let's discuss that.
That's fine. Yeah.
To come to a conclusion that works. Then.
All right.
Yeah. So if there are any developers also joining right now, so Andi has also highlighted that there is a video from Christian how to migrate your already existing integrations to Keptn from 7.x to 8. So please take a look at this video. We're also happy to help. We've already updated a couple of those integrations, and it's actually nothing very complicated. You just have to make good use of all the utility functions that the Keptn development team already provided. And it's quite easy, and we are happy to see all these integrations being migrated to the latest version of Keptn, because it really gives you all this power and flexibility that we've just seen also in the demos from Andi, and I think that's really great.
And there's not just only the video. Christian also provided a written document, as I posted here in the chat, where you can find all the steps that help you to migrate your service.
I just see that you posted this only to the panelists, so let me.
Sorry.
I just pasting it again, so everyone can have it, and it's actually this document here. It's just yeah.
Really, really cool.
Guys, you did a great job on demonstrating all the new features. Really cool.
Well, it's you did the hard job. You implemented the whole thing. So, it's really nice. All right, I think time for a beer here. I know that there's beer somewhere in one of the fridges.
Well deserved. Thanks so much, Andi, for rushing us through this the demos, and also the great explanation how on the changes between .7.x and the latest version of Keptn. I just want to highlight, we do have our Keptn developer meetings each Thursday. So whenever you're watching this video, also make sure on Thursdays we are having Keptn developer meetings. We are focusing also on community contributions and helping the Keptn community there to get started. We will have great content this week on Thursday. We actually have 2 community contributors showcasing what they've done. So please make sure to tune in there as well. Thanks so much, everyone, for today. And hopefully see you all in the next Keptn community meeting in about 1 month. Thanks, Andi. Thanks, Johannes, also for joining and sharing all your insights. Yeah, with that, I think we can close it for today.
Yeah. Cheers.
Thanks,
Adios.
everyone.
Bye.
Bye.